California's history is marked by struggles for water. Rivers and lakes have been drained with little regard for environmental damage to fuel the rise of cities like Los Angeles. But in 1983, the battle for Mono Lake transformed environmental law, changing not only the fate of the lake, but of natural resources worldwide. California's quest for water began in 1850 when it joined the Union. The gold rush had brought hundreds of thousands of settlers to an arid land where water was scarce, but wastefully used in activities like hydraulic mining. In 1850, Los Angeles was a dusty town of just 1,610 people. But by the turn of the century, its population had exploded to over 100,000. The water supplied by the Los Angeles River was no longer enough. To secure water for Los Angeles, Water Superintendent William Mulholland and Mayor Frederick Eaton created the Los Angeles Water Department, now known as the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. The department's first target was Owens Lake, 233 miles north. In 1905, they began acquiring water rights, sometimes through questionable methods, like pretending to be contractors for the government. By 1913, they had completed the Los Angeles Aqueduct, an engineering marvel that could deliver 485 million gallons daily to the thirsty city. By operating only using gravity, it even generated hydroelectric power. At the aqueduct's opening, Mulholland famously declared, "There it is. Take it." His words captured the era's attitude towards natural resources. Rights were absolute. Responsibilities were, at best, an afterthought. But the consequences of this were devastating. By 1926, Owens Lake was a toxic dust bowl, becoming the largest source of dust pollution in the United States for decades. Nevertheless, Los Angeles kept growing, with its population reaching 1.5 million by 1940, the fifth largest city in America at the time. But Owens Lake was running dry, and the city needed to fulfill its responsibility of providing water to its citizens. The city turned its sights further north, finding Mono Lake. In 1941, Los Angeles began diverting water from 4 of the lake's 5 tributary streams. By 1970, the lake had dropped 43 feet, exposed 17,000 acres of lakebed, and lost half of its volume, over 2 million acre-feet of water. At the time, this was seen as an acceptable use of water, with the use of water for domestic purposes being the highest use of water. But by the 1970s, something profound was changing in America. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring had awakened the public to environmental dangers. Similarly, the Cuyahoga River's frequent fires, especially that of 1969, had exposed the dangers of pollution. 20 million Americans took to the streets in 1970 for the first Earth Day, the largest demonstration in US history at the time. Many people believed that the environment didn't exist only to serve people. People now felt a responsibility to take care of the environment. Continuing with this trend of environmental awareness, Richard Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency in 1970. It created legislation like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act. It was in this atmosphere of environmental awakening that David Gaines, a young biologist and accomplished birder, arrived at Mono Lake in 1976. Noticing the decreasing wildlife, he and his students began documenting the lake's decline. Removing so much water from the lake had had extreme consequences. Salinity had doubled, threatening the trillions of brine shrimp in the lake, and over 300 bird species that preyed on them, including endangered California gulls. A land bridge to Nejet Island was exposed, allowing coyotes to prey on what had been safe nesting grounds. Mirroring what had happened at Owens Lake, toxic dust clouds formed. Shocked by what they had found, Gaines and his colleagues formed the Mono Lake Committee as part of the National Audubon Society in 1979, which was known for its conservation of birds like those nesting at the lake. Gaines traveled around the state educating on Mono Lake to schools, conservation groups, and lawmakers advocating for legislation like the Waters Bill. The committee also wrote newsletters, held bucket walks, and even hosted days-long bike-a-thons.
Would take their bikes, they'd ride bikes from the city of Los Angeles, from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power reflecting pool. They'd dip little vials into the reflecting pool, fill them up with water, tape them to their bike, and then ride 350 miles north to Lee Vining to have a rehydration ceremony where they gathered around Mono Lake and then took all their vials and dumped them into the lake.
They gained the support of 16,000 new members, but they needed to find a way to challenge the rights of America's now second largest city.
They came upon the idea of using the public trust doctrine as a lever to require the state to protect the body of water.
The public trust doctrine is one of the oldest ideas in common law, originating from the ancient Roman institutes of Justinian. It states that some natural resources are too important to belong to any one person. Instead, the government must hold these resources in trust for the public. But this responsibility typically applied to natural resources used for commercial purposes. It didn't yet consider the necessity of environmental conservation. But while the Mono Lake Committee argued for conservation, Los Angeles maintained that the water from the lake was necessary. They cited water supply issues, loss of hydroelectric power, which would need to be replaced by 1 million barrels of oil, and the unfairness of the cost on Los Angeles residents. Furthermore, they believed that losing the water would necessitate building a canal to draw water from the Sacramento River, shifting the harm to another ecosystem. They had to balance responsibility to both the environment and their community. After years of more research, the case, National Audubon Society versus Superior Court, reached the California Supreme Court in 1983. On February 17th, the court made a groundbreaking decision, ruling that the public trust doctrine protected Mono Lake and other natural resources for the purpose of conservation. And in 1994, the State Water Board unanimously voted for Decision 1631, which required that Los Angeles drastically reduce its water usage until Mono Lake rose by 17 feet. Now, agencies could no longer grant water rights and walk away. They had a continuing responsibility to protect public trust resources. For Los Angeles, the decision fostered innovation. It found new ways to conserve water and uphold its responsibility to its citizens. The city invested in water recycling, drought-resistant landscaping, conservation education, and new technology. Today, Los Angeles uses less water than ever, despite millions of new residents. However, the debate over Mono Lake water use continues. Some argue that not diverting water from Mono Lake may actually harm the environment elsewhere.
Even though we've gotten good at conserving, and we are much more efficient than we were 40 years ago, say, in our water supply, it is still a zero-sum game. And every acre-foot of water that LA leaves up in the Owens Valley, Mono Lake region, they usually tend to take water then from either the Colorado River or from Northern California, from the Bay Delta area. And all those have their environmental pressures as well. So you are shifting environmental burdens from one region to another without really addressing the root cause of it.
Not only that, recent tragedies like the Eaton and Palisades fires have sparked debate over the restricted water supply, causing many to weigh the importance of Los Angeles residents against the environment. Mono Lake's water level has slowly risen due to the efforts of the committee, increasing by 10 feet. And the decision has had far-reaching effects, including several thousand cases protecting resources like wetlands in Massachusetts, groundwater in Hawaii, salmon streams in Alaska, and even the Ganges River in India. Mono Lake is slowly recovering, but the most important impact of the 1983 Mono Lake case is how it revolutionized environmental law, nationally and globally, by using the ancient public trust doctrine to establish that the right to purchase and use natural resources, like water, come with permanent environmental responsibilities.